Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll take a look inside Mayor Wilson Good's fight for literacy.
We'll visit a born-again monastery in New Mexico.
Father Tom Legere joins us for relationships.
Mike Gallagher picks his favorite films of 1984.
And we'll have a profile on Drexel University student extraordinaire, Joe Angelo. Hello, I'm Father Dave McGowan.
And I'm Isabel Gaury-LaGrosse. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
Good evening, everyone. In days gone by, monasteries were situated in remote spots so that their security and their privacy could be assured. These out-of-the-way locations became natural resting spots for weary travelers, and as a result, the tradition of hospitality became very strong.
And in our first feature tonight, we're going to see how that tradition of hospitality and respite for the weary traveler has continued.
The first time I came to Pecos, a friend invited me to come down and make a retreat. And with some difficulty, I got here. And ever since, I have found that I want to return, and it's become a second home to me.
From all over the country, people like Monica Dangerfield of Winnipeg, Canada, come to Our Lady of Guadalupe Monastery, a Benedictine abbey in Pecos, New Mexico. Giving retreats is the monastery's main apostolate. There are presently over 60 men and women living the monastic life at Pecos, 25 professed and 36 in various stages of commitment.
The fact that we have both men and women in the community, Benedictine priests and brothers and Benedictine sisters, all under the headship of the abbot, I think is quite unique.
Father Andrew Miles is prior of the monastery.
Also, it being a charismatic monastery is, I think, somewhat unique today.
Healing is the main focus for each retreat.
I've seen so many people that really needed help so bad, and the charismatic renewal or the work of the Spirit has made a miracle change in their lives.
Retreat participant Tom Glennon of Albuquerque.
I first came to the Pecos Monastery about 2 years ago, and it was a mistake. I was propelled up here, but I didn't know it was charismatic. And when I found out, I was this way. And I figured I paid my money, I might as well stay, because I had read a lot of negative articles about the charismatic renewal. But after being here 5 days and seeing just how they love one another, it was like the gospel being lived. And it opened up a whole new era of my religious life.
Other features at Pecos include Dove Publications, which puts out books, pamphlets, and cassettes, an interest in holistic health, and the Abbey's use of solar energy, which is a part of their witness to poverty and simplicity. But the attraction for someone like musician and Sister Geraldine Spalding goes much deeper.
This monastery has a spirit of family about it. The mixed community, the men and women being together, and the fact that it was a charismatic monastery. And I'd been involved in the charismatic renewal since the early 70s. It was as though I could hear the spirit within me asking me, how would you like to live here? You know? And that was like, you gotta be kidding. And of course I'd like to live here, you know, because of the ministry and the gospel was alive and relationships were very much stressed here, that being an all-important thing about the gospel. Just that altogether was very attractive to me.
You always leave, I think, with a sense of love and security to return to your own home and perhaps to share this with others.
Well, if you're not packing to leave for a monastery, let's join Father Tom Legere in relationships.
Greetings in the Lord. Isn't this a marvelous old bridge? It's uneven and it's bouncy and rickety. It kind of reminds me a little bit about a lot of people. Just like not everything in nature is exactly perfect, certainly none of us are perfect either. And we all have a need to learn to accept ourselves exactly as we are. In our pride, a lot of times we don't like to do that. We would like to get ourselves all spiffed up and absolutely perfect so that we can present ourselves to God as a finished product. But the fact of the matter is, none of us are ever going to totally get it together here on this earth. Still not willing to accept that part of ourselves, what we do is we wear various masks to try to indicate to other people and maybe even convince ourselves that we've got it all together. But the fact of the matter is, each human being has a tragic flaw, and part of the spiritual journey entails coming to terms with that tragic flaw. We can look at people like St. Paul, who was able to accept his own thorn in the flesh. We can look at someone like Pope John Paul II, who was not at all embarrassed to admit the fact that he celebrates the sacrament of reconciliation each week. How can this be? How can people like St. Paul and our Pope be so comfortable in coming to God exactly as they are? It is because they are very clear that they are in love with an all-merciful, non-judgmental, unconditionally loving God who accepts them exactly as they are. And so we ourselves have nothing at all to hide either in coming to God as we are. We do so well often at forgiving other people, but we have to learn to give ourselves a break too. We have to learn to forgive ourselves at least half as much as God has already forgiven us.
Coming up next, we have Mike Gallagher, Drexel University student Joe Angelo, and Philadelphia Mayor Wilson Good. So don't go away. I'm sure that there are some of you in our audience who think that Father and I just make all this up as we go along.
But in point of fact, in preparation for a show, we review the segments and speak to the producers so that we can convey the message that they're trying to get across.
In preparing for tonight's youth profile, I spoke with producer Judy Lippery to get her insights about the young man you're going to meet, Joe Angelo. She said, and this is a direct quote, "He's one of the most wonderful people I've ever met." So here he is.
Joe Angelo might look like a typical college student, but the road he has taken to the campus of Drexel University has been an unusual one. Joe Angelo has been in foster care since birth.
A lonely place today, so I learned to depend on
I used to sit back and say, why me? And I used to get a little upset and a little depressed, and I said, well, wait a minute, you know, it's a bad situation. Okay, I didn't ask to be here. Okay, you can say all that, but you know, when it comes down to it, you have to grow. Okay, you have to deal with society, and you can either make it or break it. And it really bothers me when I hear people say, oh, well, I'm black, I'm a minority, and I have no resources, I'll never make it. Well, I fit all those specified requirements, and I consider myself making it.
Joe's always had a very positive attitude, had very clear goals for himself, and had a great sense of humor. He always knew very much that he wanted to go to college, and he started off to pursue his education with a great deal of enthusiasm.
Brother John, former administrator of the now closed Gwynedd Foster Home for Boys, recalls a time when Joe's attitude was not quite so positive.
As I remember it, his first reactions were slightly hostile. I don't think he was wild about the idea of arriving. And we spent quite a bit of time in a mental battle back and forth in the beginning. And I think Joe really didn't want to leave where he was. It was a good foster care situation for him. And slowly, we began to see change.
First, I was very reluctant, very angered. The Catholic Social Service was removing me from a place I loved, and I was very irate. And I made it very difficult for myself and for the brothers in that, well, upon my first visit, I was very ignorant. I didn't say anything to anybody, and I thought the world was crashing down on me. And in the back of my mind, I said, well, I'll just have to run away. And, but I gave it a shot. I said, well, you know, it's going to have to be your home for the next 5 years, so either you like it or you don't. And it's going to be on you, how you grow. And I gave it a shot, and I'm really glad that I did, because it was really a great influence to me. And I received a lot of love there.
In contrast to the often harsh portrayal of foster parents, Joe had found in Mrs. Brown a truly loving and caring parent, someone whom he considered to be his mother.
I was growing up. As I said, I just accepted Mrs. Brown as my mother. But as the years went on, I had this feeling in me. I said, wait a minute, this isn't right. I said, do I want my kids to go through this? Not that I didn't love where I was at. I love my foster mother. I consider her my mother. But I just didn't feel that it was right. I mean, I wanted my life to be just like everyone else's, and I knew deep down that it wasn't. So, I would advise anyone growing up in the system that it's a difficult system to get used to, in that you have to realize that your foster parents are not your real parents.
Joe's different from some other kids that come up in foster care because he did not ever seem to evidence the sense of confusion on his identity that an awful lot of foster kids do. Maybe this is the reason why he's been able to move forward at such a nice, even, steady pace and be a well-adjusted young man.
It's all in you. I felt cheated, but I'm not going to sit back and say, oh God, I've been cheated, I can never grow, and I'll never be anything. I have some very high standards I've set for myself, and I hope, and I know I will get there. It may be a little bit longer, maybe even a little bit shorter, but I know I'll get there. And I just have something inside of me that says I have to. A lot of people have invested a lot of time and money in me, and I owe it to them, but I owe it to me first.
I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can take away my dignity because of
During the last year, Mike Gallagher reviewed over 30 films, and a few of them he even liked. As we begin a new year, we've asked Mike to look at the films of 1984 and pick his favorites.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. As everybody knows, it's a year-end ritual for a movie critic to pick his 10 best. Being a stickler for tradition, I've done it faithfully every year. But there always lingered in my mind this disquieting thought. What are you going to do, smart guy, if some year you can't come up with 10, no matter how hard you try? Well, it's happened. This year I can manage no more than a best 6. But even though it has been a lean year, my choice for Best Picture would, I think, do credit to any year. It's The Killing Fields, an overwhelming film about the tragedy of Cambodia, of great visual and emotional power. Produced by David Puttman, who did Chariots of Fire, The Killing Fields constitutes an incredible feature film debut for television director Roland Joffé. It's a story of a friendship set against the background of the fall of Cambodia to the Khmer Rouge and the subsequent slaughter of millions of Cambodians. The friendship is real, not fictional. It's between New York Times correspondent Sidney Schanberg, played by Sam Waterston, and Dith Pran, his Cambodian assistant, played superbly by Hyen S. Ngor. Schanberg succeeds in evacuating Pran's family, but Pran himself, implicitly encouraged by Schanberg, stays behind. After saving Schanberg's life, Pran disappears in captivity with millions of his fellow countrymen, and Schanberg goes back to New York to an acclaim that leaves a bitter taste in his mouth. Miraculously, Pran survives. So powerful is the film's evocation both of the chaos of battle preceding the fall of Cambodia and the eerie silence of the death camps that follows it, that the Schanberg-Pran relationship is nearly overwhelmed. But this, flaw though it may be, is nevertheless a measure of how powerful is the impact of the Killing Fields. It is, of course, decidedly mature fare. The scenes of carnage are too much for children, though in real life, of course, children were very much involved. A Soldier's Story is my second choice for Best Picture. This movie about the lacerating effects of racism on an army post in the 40s is based upon the Pulitzer Prize-winning play by Charles Fuller. It's a taut and powerful film marked by superb acting. Standing out in a fine cast are Howard E. Rollins as an officer sent to investigate the murder of a black sergeant, Adolph Caesar as the murdered sergeant, a twisted bit of martinet, Denzel Washington as a fiercely independent young soldier, and Larry Riley as a happy-go-lucky Southern black who incurs the sergeant's special ire. The other four are entertaining enough, but of less stature. So in no particular order they are: Places in the Heart, which stars Sally Field as an embattled widow who with luck and pluck and help from some unlikely friend saves her farm. It has some good acting and leaves you with a warm feeling. The somewhat similar Country is much grimmer in tone, but it too has a happy ending and a saved farm. Jessica Lange is just great as a female version of the Frank Capra-style populist hero. Cal, on the other hand, is an austere drama about an ill-fated romance set in Northern Ireland. The lovers are a sensitive Catholic youth caught up in the IRA, and the widow of a murdered Protestant policeman. Helen Mirren is memorable as the widow. Finally, The Natural stars Robert Redford as a baseball player of almost mystical prowess. It's a smoothly entertaining, if somewhat bland and Hollywood version of the much darker Bernard Malibu novel. Now, using some imagery inspired by my last choice, I'm sorry there weren't more right across the plate this season, but I'm just an umpire, not a pitcher. I'm Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
We're going to break away, but when we come back, we're going to see how the Catholic Church is helping the Mayor's Commission on Literacy. So stay with us.
A Pennsylvania Department of Education study estimated that there are over 500,000 people in the Philadelphia area who are functionally illiterate.
Philadelphia Mayor Wilson Goode is promoting a campaign to supply these basic reading skills to people in our area, and some of our Catholic schools are helping in the effort. We're going to meet Mayor Goode and also Sister Helene Nagel, who is coordinating literacy programs in our neighborhoods.
For a large part of the population, understanding modern technology has become a daily struggle. But for many, merely reading books, newspapers, and street signs is a complicated task. There are over 28 million functionally illiterate people nationwide, 400,000 in Philadelphia alone. But there are people reaching out into the community to offer a helping hand.
We give our children every advantage to read and write, and we work very hard. Somehow or other, some slip through. And for all kinds of reasons, there are adults that cannot read or write. It is difficult to say, I cannot read, will you help me? They have to admit it to themselves, and then they have to ask for help. They wish to learn to read.
basically, I didn't learn to read or write because I was always playing around in school. You know, I was never paying attention. The teacher would say, sit up, I would sit down. Or she would say, you know, straighten your tie, I would take it off. I realized that when my kids get old enough, they're going to ask me things, you know, will you help me with your homework, or, you know, help me do something pertaining to reading or something, you know, or let's play a game. I mean, you know, if you got a game and only there's 3 of you there and the other part can't play because you can't read, it's not really a game.
If you're over 17 and you have a problem with reading or a problem with writing, you can call the Mayor's Commission on Literacy.
The Mayor's Commission on Literacy was created by Philadelphia Mayor W. Wilson Goode as an agency to coordinate efforts for the many groups, such as Sister Helene Nagels, that are doing their part to eradicate illiteracy.
We want people to be able to function fully and totally as citizens in our society. And we feel that if a person is going to become a real productive citizen, totally, that giving them the tools to read and to write above the 4th grade level is essential. First of all, there's been efforts for a number of years to deal with those persons who are illiterate. Our concern was there was not any one single coordinating agency that could pull all of these resources together and where there could be a clear policy from the mayor's office that says that there is a problem. Secondly, we wanted to pull together all the resources to catalog them. And thirdly, we wanted to take all those folks out there who wanted to volunteer. We wanted to pull those people in so they can use their talent and skills to help others.
The commission is made up of people from lots of organizations, Monsignor Curran, of course, in his position as head of the Catholic schools in the city, and people such as Sister Helene, who's getting people from her community to work with others in the community, reaching out so that we can draw people closer and really make a difference in Philadelphia.
Sisters throughout the area have been tutoring for many years.
The effort began in convents. It began that students came out to the sisters. We also had the option of our community public library. This was a little difficult because of the hours of the libraries in the evening. So now we are trying to move into our own parish schools. Monsignor Curran has given his permission for this. We're trying to make it community schools, and the students can come, the tutors are there, and it's within the parish, school, neighborhood environment. I see my ministry here as to make available to this whole community of Olney, to the neighborhood, to even our neighboring parishes, the opportunity for anyone who wishes to come and learn to read as an adult to have a sister tutor here or a lay tutor that will be more than willing to work with them and to watch them progress.
Well, it was frustrating because I had to depend on my wife. I had to depend on, you know, if I wanted to read or I couldn't read anything, I'd have to take it to somebody, you know. And for me to do that all the time is like being a nuisance too, you know. I mean, they would say, well, look, you ought to learn to read, you know. And I'd say, yeah, I will. But I never did. I don't want to have to depend on anybody, you know. If you don't learn how to read or write, you just, it's like a closed book. I think in the long run, I'm going to be, I'll be a whole human being again, I would say. I'll have knowledge that I didn't have before. I'll be able to do a lot of things I didn't do. Family should always, if they do anything, it should be all together. You know, not 3 and not the 4th, you know, stuff like that there. You know, when they play games, they want me to join in, especially reading games. And I just say, I don't feel like it, or I'm going to watch TV, or, you know, I just basically want to spend more time with my kids, you know. I want to grow up with them.
Comes from the doctor's office. Molly comes from the office. Molly got well. Molly got well very quickly. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, how about you?
Yeah,
Okay?
that's a good one.
Okay, thank you for listening.
That's really great, isn't it?
And there are a lot more people out there who need your help, but so few people to help them. If you'd like to volunteer your time either to Sister Helene Nagel, the Mayor's Commission on Literacy, or any of your local literacy programs, contact us here at Reel to Reel and we'll put you in touch. It will be well worth the effort. Next week on Reel to Reel, we'll have a profile on a young up-and-coming actress, Chrissy Freilich. Father John Scarcia will join us on the lighter side.
Rosemary Bruno will be along with In the Know, and we'll take a look at the inspirational work of Canadian artist Frederick Frank.
Be sure to let us know what you think of Reel to Reel. Send your letters to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia, PA 19103. All this and more next week on Reel to Reel. Good night.
Good night, and remember, Jesus is Lord.